Okay. Today we'll be taking a look again in the picture of Dorian Gray. Happy Sunday again, my Stormer Show audience. Last time in chapter 6, we got to hear about a few different views and opinions on the marriage between Dorian and Sybil. Everyone's offering their input. Lord Henry is basically sad that he's concerned that this may influence Dorian, his marriage to Sybil. Okay, chapter 7. Let's continue reading to see how those views change. For some reason or other, the house was crowded that night, and the fat Jew manager who met them at the door was beaming from ear to ear with an oily, tremulous smile. He escorted them to their box with a sort of pompous humility, waving his fat, jeweled hands and talking at the top of his voice. Dorian Gray loathed him more than ever. He's like the bouncer guy. And as we might recall from a couple of chapters ago, he's the one that Dorian paid to have the chance to meet Sybil. Let's continue reading on to see how or why he thinks that way. He felt as if he'd come to look for Miranda and had been met by Caliban. Miranda is the heroine of Shakespeare's play The Tempest. Caliban is her father's slave. Lord Henry, upon the other hand, rather liked him. At least he declared he did, and insisted on shaking him by the hand, and assured him that he was proud to meet a man who had discovered a real genius and gone bankrupt over a poet. Howard amused himself with watching the faces in the pit. The heat was terribly oppressive, and the huge sunlight flamed like a monstrous dahlia with petals of yellow fire. So, yeah, Dorian's taking Lord Henry and Basil to now meet Sybil for the first time. I talked a little bit yesterday about how our interactions with people influence our own thoughts, views, and opinions, our own thoughts and ideas. And that's going to happen with their interactions with Sybil once they meet her. The youths in the gallery had taken off their coats and waistcoats and hung them over the side. They talked to each other across the theater and shared their oranges with the tawdry girls who sat beside them. Some women were laughing in the pit. Their voices were horribly shrill and discordant. The sound of the popping of corks came from the bar. "What a place to find one's divinity in," said Lord Henry. "Yes," answered Dorian. "It was here I found her. She's divine beyond all living things. When she acts, you will forget everything. These common rough people with their coarse faces and brutal gestures become quite different when she's on the stage. They sit silently and watch her. It's like they're fascinated by her performance. They weep and laugh as she wills them to do. She makes them as responsive as a violin. She spiritualizes them, and one feels that they are of the same flesh and blood as one's self." So it's like she creates a connection with her audience. It's like one and the same. They can see their reflection in her. She creates that effect in them. It's like, oh, we're connected. The same flesh and blood as one's self? Oh, I hope not, exclaimed Lord Henry, who was scanning the occupants of the gallery through his opera glass. Don't pay any attention to him, Dorian, said the painter. Lord Henry's been in the play, he's at times the voice of reason. Yeah, at times he's the voice of reason, and at times he's the cynic. He's like the one who gives like the fresh takes. He's the one that he's like, this is how it is. He's not as like idealistic as Basil. He's not as naive as Dorian. And I'd say Sybil's very similar to Basil, especially in terms of how she interacts with Dorian. She sees him as a type of ideal. Yeah. To spiritualize. Don't pay any attention to him, Dorian, said the painter. I understand what you mean, and I believe in this girl. Anyone you love must be marvelous, and any girl that has the effect you describe must be fine and noble. To spiritualize one's age, that is something worth doing. If this girl can give a soul to those who have lived without one, if she can create the sense of beauty in people whose lives have been sordid and ugly, if she can strip them of their selfishness and lend them tears for sorrows that are not their own, she's worthy of all your adoration, worthy of the adoration of the world. It's like she can help the audience forget. She can take them away to some better place. Reference there to Sweet Child of Mine. I want to give credit where credit's due. The performer is the one I'm having a hard time remembering. Guns N' Roses. There you go. Yeah, so she like takes her audience away to a better place, a special place where they're not bothered by things that troubled them. Deliverance. She helps deliver them to something better. Just with her performance. This marriage is quite right. I did not think so at first, but I admit it now. The gods made Sybil Vane for you. Without her, you would have been incomplete. Yeah, I believe this is Basil. Yeah, Basil's explaining that his original opinion of the relationship between Sybil and Dorian has changed now that he has a chance to see and understand her effect on the audience. Thanks, Basil, answered Dorian Gray, pressing his hand. I knew that you would understand me. Harry's so cynical. He terrifies me. But here is the orchestra. It's quite dreadful, but it only lasts for about 5 minutes. Then the curtain rises, and you will see the girl to whom I am going to give all my life, to whom I have given everything that is good in me. It's like, just wait until you see that actor or actress. She's going to take your breath away. Like, you just got to make it through the intro. And then the good part's going to start. A quarter of an hour afterward, amid an extraordinary turmoil of applause, Sybil Vane stepped out onto the stage. Yes, she was certainly lovely to look at. One of the loveliest creatures, Lord Henry thought, and that he had ever seen. It's like, wow. Yes, she was was certainly lovely to look at. There's something of the fawn in her shy grace and startled eyes. A faint blush, like the shadow of a rose in a mirror of silver, came to her cheeks as she glanced at the crowded, enthusiastic house. She stepped back a few paces, and her lips seemed to tremble. Basil Howard leaped to his feet and began to applaud. Motionless, and as one in a dream, sat Dorian Gray gazing at her. Lord Henry peered through his glasses, murmuring, "Charming, charming." Yeah, Basil's cheering. I think that he may see some part of himself in Sybil. Sybil's art is these plays that she does, these plays that she's a part of, her performances. Performance is her art, whereas Dorian's art is more the conventional painting. And then Lord Henry, Lord Henry's like, I think Lord Henry's more like, he's like, I'm just gonna look at this experience as it is. He's ever the pragmatist. It's like, how it is how I see it. Nothing more, nothing less. He doesn't believe in what's not there. For all the idealism that characters like Dorian and Basil have, Lord Henry's like the ground. He keeps everyone grounded. The scene was the hall of Capulet's house, and Romeo in his pilgrim's dress had entered with Mercutio and his other friends. Mercutio, I don't know if I can remember his relationship to Romeo. He's someone's brother, I think. Let's see, does it specify? He's a friend of Romeo. Mercutio's. The band, such as it was, struck up a few bars of music, and the dance began. Through the crowd of ungainly, shabbily dressed actors, Sybil Vane moved like a creature from a finer world. Her body swayed while she danced, as a plant swayed in the water. The curves of her throat were the curves of a white lily. Her hands seemed to be made of cool ivory. Yet she was curiously listless. She showed no sign of joy when her eyes rested on Romeo. The few words she had to speak: "Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much," which mannerly devotion shows in this: "For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss." With the brief dialogue that follows, we're spoken in a thoroughly artificial manner. The voice was exquisite, but from that point of view of tone, it was absolutely false. It was wrong in color. It took away all the life from the verse. It made passion unreal. It's like she delivered the line without any tonality or expression. It's like she was like, "Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much." Like there just wasn't any feeling there. Dorian Gray grew pale as he watched her. He was puzzled and anxious. Neither of his friends dared to say anything to him. She seemed to them to be absolutely incompetent. They were horribly disappointed. It's like they first see her and they're like, "Whoa," and then once she starts delivering her lines, they're like, what's going on? Is her mind somewhere else? Is she thinking about someone or something else? Instead of her mind being on her performance. I think back in the play days, and I'm going to take a quick break here, guys, so I'll provide a brief synopsis. Back in the play days, it was easier, I think, for flaws in performances to be detected by the audience. In this day and age, it's like movie stars, they can just, and directors, they can just keep reshooting different scenes with different takes. It's like, okay, take 5, and they can just keep shooting it again and again until they get the best, the best performance of the actor or actress. And I think it's somewhat easier in a way nowadays, because actors have more time to prepare, and then they also have more time to deliver the lines. I'll be right back. Gotta go to the bathroom. Okay, I'm back. Alright. Yeah, I was sick for most of the last week, guys. I'm feeling a little bit better now. But yeah. I don't think it was COVID related. I think it was just the common cold or flu. I only had symptoms for like a day or two. So yeah, something less serious than COVID. If it was COVID, quite basically bounced right back. Okay. So she's giving a lackluster performance. Sybil is. So let's see if we can figure out why she's not delivering her lines. Yet they felt that the true test of Annie Juliet is in the balcony scene of the second act. I believe, is that when Juliet says, "Wherefore art thou, Romeo?" Yeah, I think so. They waited for that. If she failed there was nothing in her. Oh, Romeo, Romeo. Wherefore art thou, Romeo? She looked charming as she came out in the moonlight. That could not be denied. But the staginess of her acting was unbearable and grew worse as she went on. Her gestures became absurdly artificial. She overemphasized everything that she had to say. The beautiful passage, "Thou knowest the mask of night is on my face, else would a maiden blush bepaint my cheek, for that which thou hast heard me speak tonight." was declaimed with the painful precision of a schoolgirl who had been taught to recite by some second-rate professor of elocution. When she leaned over the balcony and came to those wonderful lines, although I joy in thee, I have no joy in this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning, which doth cease to be ere one can say it lightens. Sweet good night. This bud of love, my summer's ripening breath, may prove a beauteous flower when we next meet. She spoke the words as though they conveyed no meaning to her. It was not nervousness. Indeed, so far from being nervous, she was absolutely self-contained. It was simply bad art. She was a complete failure. Even the common, uneducated audience of the pit and gallery lost their interest in the play. They got restless and began to talk loudly and to whistle. The Jew manager, who was standing at the back of the dress circle, stamped and swore with rage. The only person unmoved was the girl herself. It's like passion. It's like the passion was removed from her performance. And I don't know. I've been in that position too before, where it's like you lose belief in what it is you're engaged in. And it's like it's easier to have conviction when it's something you care about. When it's a subject that's close to your heart, or it could also be a time of day thing, a topic thing, like time of day topic. It could be any one of a number of things, but yeah, belief in what it is you're doing. When the second act was over, there was a storm of hisses, and Lord Henry got up from his chair and put on his coat. "She's quite beautiful, Dorian," he said, "but she can't act. Let us go." Yeah, it's like, and I wonder if I can draw any parallels in, like, concerts. I might be able to think of an example where it's like, even performers have this sometimes, where it's like something bad happens and then they cancel the entire show. I think it happened. Maybe it's a Little Wayne concert I'm thinking of, where it's like someone threw water bottle or something and then they just like canceled the entire show. I think it's kind of similar to that, where it's like, man, y'all ungrateful. Like, I'm not doing this. And they just like walk off the stage or something like that. Like, that's kind of how this is. But in Sybil's case, she's just not giving her best performance. Okay, where am I? "I'm going to see the play through," answered the lad in a hard, bitter voice. "I'm awfully sorry that I made you waste an evening. Harry, I apologize to you both." "My dear Dorian, I should think Miss Vane was ill," interrupted Hallward. "We will come some other night." Yeah, it could be the case. Maybe she's just sick or something. And yeah, Basil says that. Yeah, I wonder if Basil is being fully genuine here. It's like, I think of anyone in this camp, in this party, that he's probably the one who can perform the best assessment about why it is that Sybil is not performing well. I think he has a unique take or a unique perspective on it based on his own craft. Like, he understands sources of inspiration. Dorian served as his muse, as his source of inspiration and creation. So maybe he can identify what's really going on with Basil. Since they have some level of interest and motivation in common. They both love Dorian. Okay. I wish she was ill, he rejoined, but she seems to me to be simply callous and cold. She's entirely altered. Last night she was a great artist. This evening she's merely a commonplace, mediocre actress. Don't talk like that about anyone you love, Dorian. Love is a more wonderful thing than art. They're both simply forms of imitation, remarked Lord Henry. But do let us go. Do let us go, Dorian. You must not stay here any longer. It's not good for one's morals to see bad acting. Besides, I don't suppose you'll want your wife to act. So what does it matter if she plays like Juliet? So what does it matter if she plays Juliet like a wooden doll? She's very lovely, and if she knows as little about life as she does about acting, she will be a delightful experience. It's like Lord Henry saying, like, ignorance is bliss here. It's like Lord Henry always, like, has keen insights. He's just good to have around, Lord Henry. Like, yeah, you just want him wherever you are. There are only two kinds of people who are really fascinating: people who know absolutely everything and people who know absolutely nothing. Good heavens, my dear boy, don't look so tragic. The secret of remaining young is never to have any emotion that is unbecoming. Come to the club with Basil and myself. We will smoke cigarettes and drink to the beauty of Sybil Vane. She is beautiful. What more can you want? Go away, Harry, cried the lad. I want to be alone. Basil, you must go. Ah, can't you see that my heart is breaking? The hot tears came to his eyes. His lips trembled, and rushing to the back of the box, he leaned up against the wall, hiding his face in his hands. It's like the, don't ever meet your heroes kind of thing. It's like, yeah, it's like exactly like that is. It's like he had this idealized view of Sybil, her acting ability, the way she was, and it's like once she stops acting, it's like his perception of her changes. It's like, I don't know, maybe like President Clinton would be a good comparison. It's like after the scandal. It's like they're no longer as heroic as they once were because of something negative that changes that perception of them. Yeah, it's like don't ever meet your heroes exactly. It's like because once you meet them, once you see them not being their best or not overcoming, not achieving, not, I don't know, whatever it is, you'll think less of them as a result. And yeah, that's how he's seeing Basil right now. He's like, she was great before, and now she, now she's not. What's this world coming to? He's like, there is no God. It's like, it's okay, Dorian, it's okay. She's just having a bad night. Yeah. His lips trembled. And rushing to the back of the box, yeah, he hid his face in his hands. Let us go, Basil, said Lord Henry, with a strange tenderness in his voice. And the two young men passed out together. And I kind of feel bad for Dorian here. Dude, it's like some of these characters are like ignorant to a certain extent. I think Lord Henry's probably the least ignorant character in the book so far. It's like Basil sees an idealized version of Dorian. Dorian sees an idealized version of Sybil. Sybil sees the idealized version of Dorian. And it's like once that perception changes, it's like their whole worldview changes too. And yeah, it's kind of like how Dorian thought about youth. He's like, I won't always be young. And then his perception changes. His heart breaks a little bit more. And then it's like, same thing about Sybil. It's like, she's perfect. She's perfection. And then it's like, anything happens and then it's like, it all falls down. Like the Kanye West song. When it all falls down. I don't know. That's why I think it's better to be like Lord Henry. Keep your expectations at a reasonable level, so that way nothing ever disappoints you too much. It's like if you think anything or anyone, practically if you think of anything as perfect, there's going to be a point in time where you're let down. We live in an imperfect world. And if you think about it that way, it's easier to accept things when they aren't perfect. You know, like when it rains on your birthday or something like that. It's like, okay, it wasn't a sunny day, but that's because that's just how it is. That's how the world is. Yeah, and then they pass out. Yeah, a few moments afterward, the footlights flared up and the curtain rose on the third act. Dorian Gray went back to his seat. He looked pale and proud and indifferent. The play dragged on and seemed interminable. Like it just was not ending. Like, when is this gonna end? Half the audience went out, tramping in heavy boots and laughing. The whole thing was a fiasco. The last act was played to almost empty benches. The curtain went down on a titter and some groans. Yeah, it's kind of funny. This reminds me of Producers in a way. It's like everyone's like the audience is disgusted, they're bored, everyone starts leaving, and then you have that flamboyant character come on the stage. It's like, ding, and then everyone starts, they start laughing, and then they start coming back in to the theater. It's like, except in this case, it's like everyone actually just hates the show and they're just leaving. Alright, let's see, where are we? The curtain went down on a titter and some groans. As soon as it was over, Dorian Gray rushed behind the scenes into the green room. The girl was standing there alone, with a look of triumph on her face. Her eyes were lit with an exquisite fire. There was a radiance about her. Her parted lips were smiling over some secret of their own. Like, maybe it's the case that she found a way to stop acting or something. She's like, this is my last show. Like, I'm never going to have to worry about acting again. Maybe that's what she's thinking or something like that. She's like, my acting career is over because I got a lot of, money, or maybe I'm doing something else now. Or maybe I don't know. There's something else that she's looking forward to other than her performance. When he entered, she looked at him, and an expression of infinite joy came over her. How badly I acted tonight, Dorian, she cried. Horribly, he answered, gazing at her in amazement. Horribly. It was dreadful. Are you ill? Have you no idea what it was? You've no idea what it was. You've no idea what I suffered. I think Dorian needs to be a little bit. What's the expression? Like, he needs to be a little bit easier on Sybil. It's like, look, you followed her around like a bunch of shows, and every single one of those shows, she was the light of your life. Now all of a sudden, it's like she's 91. I don't know. Maybe it's like that whole maybe not dead sparks. Yeah, maybe it is a little bit dead sparks. It's like the way he thinks about her changes. Yeah, maybe. The girl smiled. Dorian, she answered, lingering over his name with long-drawn music in her voice, as though it were sweeter than honey to the red petals of her mouth. Dorian, you should have understood. But you understand now, don't you? Understand what? He asked angrily. Why I was so bad tonight. Why I shall always be bad. Why I shall never act well again. It's like, Dorian, reasonable expectations, dude. Like, where the heck is Lord Henry when you need him? It's like, talk to the boy. He's thinking that everyone and everything is always going to be perfect, and then something bad happens and he gets disappointed. He's like, you didn't have a good night? Oh, everything sucks now. It's like, life isn't worth living anymore. You can't, it's like, yeah, understand what? He asked angrily. Why? I was so bad tonight. Why I shall always be bad. He shrugged his shoulders. You're ill, I suppose. When you're ill, you shouldn't act. It's like, when you're sick, you don't have to do it. Just don't go on. You make yourself ridiculous. My friends were bored. I was bored. She seemed not to listen to him. She was transfigured with joy. An ecstasy of happiness dominated her. It's like, yeah. It's like calling in sick. It's like, I don't know, some people think it's a big deal, some people don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, it really is not a big deal. It's like, if you're not feeling well, you don't need to go on. Dorian, she cried. Before I knew you, acting was the one reality of my life. It was only in the theater that I lived. Alright, hold on, guys. I need to think about it. Think about it. Yeah, so it's like, acting was everything to her. I'm trying to think of a good comparison here. Maybe like Michael Jordan with basketball. Yeah, I think maybe that's a good comparison. It's like, for the longest time, like, life, like, ball was life. Like nothing else was more important than basketball. And then it's like he wins a few championships, and then all of a sudden it's like, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna retire. And all the papers and stuff are like, what? Michael Jordan was the best in the game. He's not playing basketball anymore? What? What's the world coming to? That's kind of like how it is for Sybil Vane. So she was like, acting was my everything. I thought that it was all true. I was Rosalind one night, and Portia the other. The joy of Beatrice was my joy, and the sorrows of Cordelia were mine also. It was like her conduit. Like that was her everything. I guess more recently, I guess Simone Biles could be a good comparison too. It's like she is the gymnast. Like that is everything. like and that's how everyone sees her too. Is like her, yeah, gymnastics is her everything. And then yeah, she decides that she's not feeling up to it, and she doesn't. It's like that's her mode. Like for Simone, it's like it's about gymnastics. For Sybil Vane, it's like acting. It's like that. Like that's what brought me joy, and then it's like, and then something changes. I believed in everything. The common people who acted with me seemed to me to be godlike. The painted scenes were my world. I knew nothing but shadows, and I thought them real. It, yeah, and I think it's also like completely normal and natural for people to change, right? For you to have a change in hobbies. It's like for a long time, I was the same way. It's like you just have stretches of time where you really like some activities. It's like you really like martial arts. I really liked martial arts for a long time, and then I really liked tennis, and then I really liked lacrosse. And then it's like you just try different things. It's like, and for a time it was volleyball for me. You just try different things, you enjoy different things. Maybe some things you're even extremely good at it. It's like you're really, really good at soccer, for example. And then it's like, and then you just want to try something else. Just like Michael Jordan with the baseball. It's like you just want to try something different. Yeah, you came, oh my beautiful love, and you freed my soul from prison. You taught me what reality really is. Tonight, for the first time in my life, I saw through the hollowness, the sham, the silliness of the empty pageant in which I always played. Tonight, for the first time, I became conscious that the Romeo was hideous, and old and painted, that the moonlight in the orchard was false, that the scenery was vulgar, and the words I had to speak were unreal, were not my words, and were not what I wanted to say. It's like, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, in a way. It's like she sees, before it was like she was looking at the curtain, and it's like now she's able to look behind the curtain to see the guy who's like pulling all the strings. It's like the shine of acting for her wore off. It's like she doesn't see it as fantastical. It's like this. It's kind of like the stars in your eyes. It's like she had stars in her eyes before, and it's like now they're going away. They're going out of her eyes for acting. And yeah, maybe she's just changing as a person. I think scientifically speaking, it's like you're a completely different person every 10 or so years because your cells are constantly replacing themselves. So it's like you actually just change as a person. And Sybil here is just changing. Yeah, she's her the way she sees it is changing. She doesn't see herself in the role. She doesn't see herself as an extension of that character. She's starting to see it more objectively, like from the outside looking in now instead of from the inside. You had brought me something higher, something of which all art is but a reflection. You had me understand what love really is. My love, Prince Charming, Prince of Life. I've grown sick of shadows. It's like Dorian's still the person that she has feelings for. It's acting that she's not as fond of. She grew sick of shadows. You're more to me than all art can ever be. What have I to do with the puppets of a play? When I came on tonight, I could not understand how it was that everything had gone for me. I thought that I was going to be wonderful. I found that I could do nothing. Suddenly it dawned on my soul what it all meant. The knowledge was exquisite to me. I heard them hissing, and I smiled. What could they know of love such as ours? Take me away, Dorian. Take me away with you, where we can be quite alone. I hate the stage. I might mimic a passion that I do not feel, but I cannot mimic one that burns me like fire. Oh, Dorian, Dorian, you understand now what it signifies? Even if I could do it, it would be profanation for me to play at being in love. You made me see that. Profanation. I assume it means like an act, like a play, something you put on. False representation. Profanation is the act of saying or doing something terribly offensive or blasphemous, like swearing in a mosque. It's like disrespectful. Yeah, maybe contemptuous, destructive. She's saying that, like, it's wrong for me to pretend like I'm in love because I've found the real deal. I found the real deal in real life. The veins are like extremely fascinating. Like her brother James Vane, he doesn't believe that love's real because he hasn't found love. Sybil, for her, love was like a fantasy. Like she pretended she knew what love was before she found it. Then she found it, and now it's taken the place of what she thought before. It's like the Vanes experience, either do or do not experience love, and that changes how they see the actual world itself. He flung himself down on the sofa and turned away his face. "You've killed my love," he muttered. Dorian, Dorian, Dorian. It's like you're gonna throw away a good thing. Although I think it could be the case that Dorian, it's like he saw her with like rose-colored glasses before, and it's like once she lost the ability to act, he's able to take them off. Yeah, kind of sad how that's the case. Let me see how Sybil will react, but it's probably going to be with some sense of betrayal, like, "But Prince Charming, we were in love before. What do you mean you're not in love with me anymore?" She looked at him in wonder and laughed. He made no answer. She came across to him and with her little fingers stroked his hair. She knelt down and pressed his hands to her lips. He drew them away, and a shudder ran through him. Then he leaped up and went to the door. "Yes," he cried. "You've killed my love. You used to stir my imagination. Now you don't even stir my curiosity." It's like, Dorian, dude. And the one person I'm thinking about in this is Basil right now. Basil, you know, the one who originally thought you were cool and awesome, and then you wanted to get married to Sybil, and then his whole opinion of you changed. Now your whole opinion of her's changing. What's going on with you, dude? You simply produce no effect, he says. I loved you because you were marvelous, because you had genius and intellect, because you realized the dreams of great poets and gave shape and substance to the shadows of art. You've thrown it all away. You were shallow and stupid. My God, how mad I was to love you. What a fool I've been. And yeah, that's how a lot of people refer to love. It's like only fools fall in love. Like, there you go. Like, yeah. Only fools rush in. It's also said. Yeah. What a fool I've been. You're nothing to me now. I will never see you again. I will never think of you. I will never mention your name. You don't know what you were to me once. Why once? Oh, I can't bear to think of it. I wish I'd never laid eyes upon you. You've spoiled the romance of my life. How little you can know of love if you say it mars your art. And I think it's interesting in a way, like, when you reflect on when you're in love with people. Like, especially if you were in a relationship with someone and then you broke up with them. I think he's having some of those same feelings. He's like thinking about the way he was when he was in love with Sybil. He's like reflecting on those feelings that he had for her, and realizing he doesn't have them anymore. He's like, How little you can know of love if you say it mars your art. Without your art, you're nothing. It would have made you famous, splendid, magnificent. The world would have worshipped you, and you would have borne my name. What are you now? A third-rate actress with a pretty face. It's like, Dorian, ouch, dude, ouch. It's like definitely like, ouch. The girl grew white and trembled. She clenched her hands together, and her voice seemed to catch in her throat. You're not serious, Dorian, she murmured. You're acting. It's like, now you're the one putting on a play, Dorian. Now you're the actor. And I definitely feel for Sybil here. It's like, man, that sucks, Sybil, when you're both in love and you both have feelings for each other. It's freaking awesome. And then once, one person says they don't have feelings for you anymore, it can seem like the end of the world. Like, yeah, it's kind of like that Usher song, like Moving Mountains or something like that. Yeah, it can be one of the saddest feelings you're able to experience. Love lost. Let's see, how much longer is this chapter? Quite long, I think. Let's see, chapter 9. What chapter are we on? 7, I think, right? Okay, yeah, we've only got a couple more pages. 96 is the page that we end on. Let me turn on the light. We are losing light. And I had to go to the bathroom. Alright, be right back. Okay, I'm back. So Dorian has just takes these backseas Sybil, and she is, yeah, in disbelief. I feel bad for Sybil right now, and Dorian's coming across as a jerk. Maybe not a jerk, but yeah, his feelings have changed. Yeah, his feelings have changed. She rose from her knees. Oh, oops, sorry, I missed a part. Acting. I leave that to you. You do it so well, he answered bitterly. She rose from her knees and with a piteous expression of pain in her face came across the room to him. She put her hand upon his arm and looked into his eyes. He thrust her back. Don't touch me, he cried. A low moan broke from her, and she flung herself at his feet and lay there like a trampled flower. Dorian, Dorian, don't leave me, she whispered. I'm so sorry I didn't act well. I was thinking of you all the time. But I will try. Indeed, I will try. It came so suddenly across me, my love for you. Sybil, word to the wise. If he says he's leaving you because you didn't act well one night, dump him. Move on with your life. It almost never ends well when one says you're leaving. Yeah, if one says you're leaving and you're the only one trying to keep it afloat, your boat. So yeah, just move on, Missy. Move it along. She's like, I can act. I'll try acting. I think I should never have known if you had not kissed me, if we'd not kissed each other. Kiss me again, my love. Don't go away from me. I couldn't bear it. Oh, don't go away from me. My brother. No, never mind. She's gonna talk about James and how he's gonna whoop him. James said he would murder you, my love, if you broke my heart. And I don't want you to be among the dead. She's about to lay that bomb on him. You're gonna be my friend from the other side, Dorian, if you make this mistake. My brother will see to that. Can't you forgive me for tonight? I'll work so hard and try to improve. Don't be cruel to me, because I love you better than anything in the world. Yeah, this book's about to start playing out like an episode of Jerry Springer, yo. If James catches up. After all, it's only once that I've not pleased you. But you're quite right, Dorian. I should have shown myself more of an artist. It was foolish of me, and yet I couldn't help it. Oh, don't leave me, don't leave me. A fit of passionate sobbing choked her. She crouched on the floor like a wounded thing, and Dorian Gray with his beautiful eyes looked down on her, and his chiseled lips curled in exquisite disdain. There's always something ridiculous about the emotion of people whom one has ceased to love. Sybil Vane seemed to him to be absurdly melodramatic. Her tears and sobs annoyed him. Well, and Dorian's still very young. I think, like, young people in love, like, you always have to, like, wait. Like, take your time until you're sure. I think a lot of young people, when they get married, it ends in divorce. I've never been married. I've also never been divorced. So there you go. I'm going, he said at last, in his calm, clear voice. I don't wish to be unkind, but I can't see you again. You've disappointed me. It's like, you have failed me, he says. Yeah, it's like, Dorian, maybe you're the one being melodramatic, dude. She wept silently and made no answer, but crept near. Her little hand stretched blindly out and appeared to be seeking for him. He turned on his heel and left the room. In a few moments, he was out of the theater. Where he went to, he hardly knew. He remembered wandering through dimly lit streets, past gaunt, black-shadowed archways and evil-looking houses. Women with hoarse voices and harsh laughter had called after him. Drunkards had reeled by cursing and chattering to themselves like monstrous apes. He had seen grotesque children huddled upon doorsteps and heard shrieks and oaths from gloomy courts. Yeah, he's like wandering around. Yeah, he's wandering around London streets at night after having just broken up with Sybil Vane after their engagement. As the dawn was just breaking, he found himself close to Covent Garden. That's then home to London's central flower, fruit, and vegetable market. The darkness lifted, and flushed with faint fires, the sky hollowed itself into a perfect pearl. Huge carts filled with nodding lilies rumbled slowly down the polished, empty street. The air was heavy with the perfume of the flowers, and their beauty seemed to bring him an anodyne for his pain. He followed into the market and watched the men unloading their wagons. A white-smocked carter offered him some cherries. He thanked him, wondered why he refused to accept any money for them, and began to eat them listlessly. They had been plucked at midnight, and the coldness of the moon had entered into them. A long line of boys carrying crates of striped tulips and of yellow and red roses defiled in front of him, threading their way through the huge jade-green piles of vegetables. Under the portico, with its gray, sun-bleached pillars, loitered a troop of draggled, bareheaded girls waiting for the auction to be over. Yeah, no, it does not say dragons. Others crowded around the swinging doors of their coffee house in the piazza. The heavy cart horses slipped and stamped upon the rough stones, shaking their bells and trappings. Some of the drivers were lying asleep on a pile of sacks. Iris-necked and pink-footed, the pigeons ran about, picking up its seeds. After a while, he hailed a hansom and drove home. For a few moments, he loitered upon the doorsteps, looking around at the silent square, with its blank, close-shuttered windows and its staring blinds. The sky was pure opal now, and the roofs of the houses glistened like silver against it. For some chimney opposite, a thin reef of smoke was rising. It curled, a violet ribbon, through the nacre-colored air. Nacre-colored is color of mother of pearl. In the huge gilt Venetian lanterns, spoil of some doges? I don't know, D-O-G-E-S. Belonging to the main Venetian magistrate. Barge that hung from the ceiling of the great oak paneled hall of entrance. Lights were still burning from 3 flickering jets. Thin blue petals of flame they seemed, rimmed with white fire. He turned them out, and having thrown his hat and cape on the table, passed through the library toward the door of his bedroom. A large octagonal chamber on the ground floor that, in his newborn feeling for luxury, he had just decorated for himself, and hung with some curious Renaissance tapestries that had been stored in a disused attic at Selby Royal. That's Dorian's country house. As he was turning the handle of the door, his eyes fell upon the portrait Basil Howard had painted of him. It's like there is always something there to remind him. He like sees that painting. He's like a sudden rush of memories, fond memories of the time that he had with Basil. He started back as if in surprise. Then he went on into his own room, looking somewhat puzzled. After he had taken the buttonhole out of his coat, he seemed to hesitate. Finally, he came back, went over to the picture, and examined it. In the dim arrested light that struggled through the cream-colored silk blinds, the face appeared to him to be a little changed. The expression looked different. One would have said that there was a touch of cruelty in his mouth. It was certainly strange. Yeah, it kind of reminds me, guys, of that, like, if anyone's ever been to, like, Disneyland, the Haunted Mansion ride, the intro, when they have those, like, paintings, and then it's like, you go in, and there's, like, all these paintings, and you see them, and you're just in this big room, and they have the narrator talking to you overhead. It's like, these people have experienced different turns of events. And then it's like the lightning comes down, the rain, and then the paintings themselves change. It's like you look up and all the paintings have changed. That part used to scare me so much. Because it's like paintings aren't supposed to change, right? It's like they're supposed to be the same. Oops. Yeah, it's like, the paintings are not supposed to change. And it's like when they do, it's like, it's extremely freaking scary. It's like what the heck? Yeah, it's very scary when that happens. And it's like, they also have like the hall that you go through, and it's like they have those like pictures, and yeah, you're just walking through like this hallway, and there's all these pictures, and then it's like the pictures themselves change to more to like scarier versions of themselves. Whew. Yeah, creepy stuff. Yeah. Pictures changing, yeah. Yeah, the Haunted Mansion is probably the best example I could think of that. Yeah, that phenomenon of the picture changing. It might actually also be in the movie Haunted Mansion, of those like pictures changing. Yeah, I think it's in a lot of like Haunted Mansion themed movies and different art forms and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, the pictures, like when they change it, can create that scary effect. It's like it stays the same. It's supposed to stay the same. That like that, like that's the thing about pictures and paintings. It's like they're not supposed to change. Yeah, it's like in some pictures you have, it's like they remind you of things. It's like that Death Cab for Cutie song, Title and Registration. Yeah. For some reason I'm having a hard time remembering this song right now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Title and Registration. I just can't remember the way the song goes. Ah, okay. Yeah. The glove compartment. The glove compartment is inaccurately named. I know I'm off key. And everybody knows it. So I'm suggesting a swift, orderly change. The glove compartment is inaccurately named. Because behind its door, there's nothing to keep my fingers warm. And all I find Our souvenirs from better times. It's like that picture is like the souvenir from those times, like just like it is for Dorian. It's like it's reminding him of how it was then. And as he remarked, as we've seen in the in a previous chapter in the book, Basil and Dorian are remarking on the unchanging nature of portraits. And Dorian's lamenting. He's like, I'll age, but the picture won't. The picture will stay the same. I wish it was the other way around. I wish the picture will change. The picture would age while I stay the same, so I can preserve my youth. I can preserve the way that I am. But, and yeah, here now we're seeing that it's actually the portrait is actually changing based on the things that he's done. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. Kind of reminds me of like Beauty and the Beast too, in a way. It's like the glass that is put over that rose flower, the rose. It's like all the petals are going off. It's like it's like the Beast is on the timetable to do an act of true love. It's like, yeah, it's different for Dorian here though. It's like things are changing based on what he's doing. Okay, but let's get back to the book. Yeah. It just gives me chills when like pictures change like that. He turned around and, walking to the window, drew up the blinds. The bright dawn flooded the room and swept the fantastic shadows into dusty corners where they lay shuddering. But the strange expression that he had noticed in the face of the portrait seemed to linger there, to be more intensified even. The quivering, ardent sunlight showed him the lines of cruelty round the mouth as clearly as if he had been looking into a mirror after he had done some dreadful thing. It's hard to say, too, how much of this is in Dorian's mind. It's like that perception versus reality thing, right? It's like, how much of this is actually real? And yeah, that's why I find movies like Oculus so spooky, too. It's like perception is how we see the worlds. Anything that changes that perception changes the world itself. Like, think about that, yo. It's like he winced. And taking up from the table an oval glass framed in ivory cupids, one of Lord Henry's many presents to him, glanced hurriedly into its polished depths. No one like that warped his red lips. What did it mean? Yeah, perception defines reality in a nutshell. It's like things that people say to us. Yeah, it's like the way we see things is the way the world is. And so yeah, he rubbed his eyes and came closer to the picture and examined it again. There were no signs of any change when he looked into the actual painting. And yet there was no doubt that the whole expression had altered. It was not a mere fancy of his own. The thing was horribly apparent. I wonder if Basil's there, or Basil or Lord Henry are there. You could be like, guys, come check it out. The painting changed. I think like that's probably the only way. Like he needs to get a third opinion. Because it whenever there's stuff like this, it's like you can't know. Like that's the part of like one of the main reasons why I would hate to live by myself. Because it's like if anything, like if you see anything strange like that, you're gonna want an outside opinion. Like you're gonna want someone else to tell you that you're not going nuts. Right? It's like It's like, I can't be the only one who notices that this painting changed. Yeah. Or, yeah, you know. I can't be the only one who's seen this thing that happened. Like, yeah, and for that same reason, it's like, make sure you're recording it when you ever see aliens, because yeah, you're gonna want to show that to as many people as you can. Same thing about Bigfoot. Anything else that's strange that happens, make sure you have your phone or something with you so you can record it happening, because that's the only way people are gonna believe it. Yeah, and even that they might call into question, like, is this doctored? Is yeah, is this? Did you change this around? It's like suspicion and doubt. It's like, yeah, it's like the burden of proof, proving something that happens. Okay, let's see, guys. So yeah, he's seeing this painting. He can see that it's changed. Yeah, he threw himself into a chair and began to think. Suddenly, there flashed across his mind what he had said in Basil Hallward's studio the day the picture had been finished. I think this is going to be the callback to the chapter I was referring to, chapter 1. Excuse me. Yeah, I think this is going to be the callback. Yes, he remembered it perfectly. He had uttered a mad wish that he himself might remain young. Guys, see? That he'd remain young and the portrait grow old. That his own beauty might be untarnished, and the face on the canvas bear the burden of his passions and his sins. That the painted image might be seared with the lines of suffering and thought, and that he might keep all the delicate bloom and loveliness of his then just conscious boyhood. It's like the painting, the portrait can be a type of monument to his sins. Halo reference there. And like, it can represent everything that he does wrong. All of his bad things are in the painting. And yeah, maybe it's one of those like, be careful what you wish for things, because it might actually come true. Whew. The power of wishing. Yeah, it's kind of like one of those like wish things. It's like sometimes when your wishes are granted, it's like it's the way that you want it, and then sometimes it's like a monkey paw kind of thing. Whereas it's like you wish for it, but it's like it's not what you intended when you wish for it. It's like when I wished for a beautiful house, I wanted an actual beautiful house. I didn't want this like cabin in the woods kind of thing. Interesting stuff. Yeah. That he might keep the delicate bloom and just, yeah, of his then just conscious boyhood. Surely his wish had not been fulfilled. Such things were impossible. It seemed monstrous even to think of them. And yet there was this picture before him with the touch of cruelty in the mouth. Cruelty. Had he been cruel? It was the girl's fault, not his. Come on, Dorian. He had dreamed of her as a great artist, had given his love to her because he had thought her great. Then she had disappeared. She had disappointed him. She had been shallow and unworthy, and yet a feeling of infinite regret came over him as he thought of her lying at his feet sobbing like a little child. It's like compassion. Like, it doesn't take much to be compassionate to people. He remembered with what callousness he had watched her. Why had he been made like that? Why had he why had such a soul been given to him? But he had suffered also. During the 3 terrible hours that the play had lasted, he had lived centuries of pain, eon upon eon of torture. His life was well worth hers. She had marred him for a moment, if he had wounded her for an age. Besides, women were better suited to bear sorrow than men. They lived on their emotions. Yeah, I'd say look at statistics. They'd only thought of their emotions. When they took lovers, it was merely to have someone with whom they could have scenes. Lord Henry had told him that, and Lord Henry knew what women were. Why should he trouble about Sybil Vane? She was nothing to him now. But the picture. What was he to say of that? It held the secret of his life and told his story. It had taught him to love his own beauty. Would it teach him to loathe his own soul? Would he ever look at it again? No, it was merely an illusion wrought on the troubled senses. The horrible night that he had passed had left phantoms behind it. Suddenly there had fallen upon his brain that tiny scarlet speck that makes men mad. The picture had not changed. It was folly to think so. Like, maybe it is all in his head. Yet it was watching him, with its beautiful marred face and its cruel smile. Its bright hair gleamed in the early sunlight. It's kind of like, this is kind of reminding me of Edgar Allan Poe in a way. Like, it's the beating of the hideous heart. Like it's all, like maybe it's all just his way of rationalizing his own thoughts, words, and actions. Like, is how he perceives this painting. A sense of infinite pity, not for himself, but for the painted image of himself, came over him. It had altered already, and would alter more. Its gold would wither into gray. Its red and white roses would die. For every sin that he committed, a stain would fleck and wreck its fairness. But he would not sin. Sin is, I would say it's a religious concept. It has roots, I think, in Judeo-Christianity. It might precede that, but in a basic sense, sin is anytime you do something wrong. You pay for your sins. It's like stealing a cookie from the cookie jar. Like, that's kind of like a sin. It's like, sin is the actions that we would consider wrong or evil in nature. And you can record, like, at least the way it is, the way I was brought up in Catholicism, which is itself a branch of Christianity, you can seek forgiveness for your sins in what's referred to as a confession booth. You go into the church, you sit in the booth, you confess your sins to the father or priest of the church, or, I guess it could be like a bishop, or, even the Pope, I guess. Like, any representative of the church, you can confess your sins to, and they can forgive your sins. I'm having all kinds of pop-ups and stuff. What the heck? Yeah, they can forgive your sins, like the things that you've done that are wrong. That's my explanation of the concept of sin. Yeah. The picture, changed or unchanged, would be to him the visible emblem of conscience. I think a lot of it is based in your own sense of right and wrong. He would resist temptation. He would not see Lord Henry anymore. Would not, at any rate, listen to those subtle, poisonous theories that in Basil Hallward's garden had first stirred within him the passion for impossible things. It's like, hey, cut Lord Henry a little bit of slack, okay? He like I keep making reference to, he's one of, if not the most grounded character in here. He would go back to Sybil Vane, make her amends, marry her, try to love her again. If she gives you that privilege and opportunity. Yes, it was his duty to do so. She must have suffered more than he had. Poor child. He had been selfish and cruel to her. The fascination that she had exercised over him would return. Yeah, again, if she takes you back. They would be happy together. His life with her would be beautiful and pure. He got up from his chair and drew a large screen right in front of the portrait, shuddering as he glanced at it. It's like he's trying to cover it. Again, reminding me of Oculus. It's like if he can't see it or look at it, it won't bother him. It's like, just cover it up. Cover it up so you don't have to look at it or into it. How horrible, he muttered to himself, and he walked across to the window and opened it. When he stepped out onto the grass, he drew a deep breath. The fresh morning air seemed to drive away all his somber passions. He thought only of Sybil. A faint echo of his love came back to him. He repeated her name over and over again. It reminds me of what's it called? The Wizard of Oz. Like, I wish I was home. I wish I was home. I wish I was home. He's like, Sybil, Sybil, Sybil. He keeps saying her name, trying to summon her. And I can speak from experience that it doesn't actually work. Like, you can say your lover's name any one of a number of times. If she's an ex-lover, she will not appear. That's not how life works. He repeated her name over and over. The birds that were singing in the dew-drenched garden seemed to be telling the flowers about her. Yeah, so there you have it, guys. We'll see, yeah, in chapter 8, that'll be next time, if Sybil does actually take Dorian back. I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? You can drop it in the chat, or, comments, what have you. Do you think Dorian was harsh, cruel, overly critical towards Sybil? I think so. I think he was maybe a bit rash, abrupt. What's the word? Premature. Yeah, I'd say premature in his rejection of Sybil. It's like, dude, you've been going to all of these shows that she's a part of, and she was like the light of your life. She was like just the star of your world. And it's like she has one bad night, and all of a sudden it's like you want to break up with her. It's like start seeing people as humans instead of as angels that can't do any wrong, and you again will have more realistic expectations. Okay, thank you for watching Stormer Show. I hope you all enjoyed. I got some really interesting ideas out there in this chapter. We'll see where else this book can take us. I hope you've all been enjoying watching the show, Stormer Show. Thank you for following. Thank you for the donations. Thank you for any and all support that you show to the program. And as always, thank you for watching. Signing off.